Alright, so I decided last minute to go ahead and make a tutorial on how to set an enemy's destination. Um, the only thing I've done to this script is literally I just typed in a method group called set destination. That is all I have done. So is what we're going to need for this is we're actually going to need an empty game object. And we will call this patrol area. Inside the patrol area we have point 1, and we'll duplicate that and call this point 2. So point 1 and point 2, basically all these are going to do, I'll go ahead and zero all these values out. Point 1 is the area we want him to go to, and point 2 will be the other area we want him to go to. So point 1 is right here, point 2 is over here. And is what we need to do is, in here, we already have it set to move towards, right here. And so is what we're going to do is we're actually going to come in here, and we can basically just like slap it in here if we want, but we need to come in here and I want to clean up some of this code. So just give me one moment, you guys. There we go. Alright, so additionally to the vector2 where we have self and the player, we're also going to have point 1, point 2. And so we also need to create 2 private bools, and this will be called point 1, point 2. And I'm actually going to change point 1 to point 1 vec, and point 2 to point 2 vec. And so is what we can do is inside this set destination we can say if point 1, we'll encompass these in swirly brackets, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. Then we will we'll basically just hit this and set it here. Now in the other scene we did create triggers, and we're going to still do the same thing, but this is going to be set up a little bit differently. So is what we need to do is we will need to say, trying to think how I want to do this. I'm going to put in else. I'm going to slap this down here. So we know that if point 1 is true, then that's where we're going to want to go. So instead of going to player vec, we're going to say point 1 vec, and this one will be point 2 vec. And so down here, I'm going to do this without changing any of the tags. So if we have tag, yeah, we have the move right and move left, but is what we want to do is we actually want to change this to if point 1, come on, there we go, if point 1, then let's go ahead and set destination. And we will say point 2 equals false. Point 1, no wait, point 1 needs to equal false. Point 2 needs to equal true, I think. And it would help if I were to type in else. So what is this going to do for us? Well, basically, if he is chasing, or if he's not chasing, and he hits this turn, then if he's going to point 1, he's going to set his destination to that point. Point 2 will equal true, and point 1 will equal false. Otherwise, he'll go to the other. And that's if I've done this correctly. So now we run into a problem. Trying to think how to explain this. Or actually we won't run into a problem, is what will end up happening is he will, even though he's chasing the player, let's say his destination is going to be the one over here on the left and the player's over here. Well, even if his point is to go to this one, whenever he hits this one, he'll stop, and then he'll just basically stay there. And It is kind of a problem, but at least now he's not like continuing outside of the bounds. And so that's one of the advantages we're going to have with this setup. But if he's outside the bounds, how are we going to kind of alleviate him from just sitting there? Well, essentially what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create a timer. So I'll come back up to the top, give some space between that and the start. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say private, float, and this will be called wait timer. We can also call it idle timer. I think that'd be a lot better. Idle timer. There we go. It'd help if I spelled float correctly. So now is what we're going to do is we need to come in here and we need to do a check to see if he's going to be moving or not. If he is, then he'll be in the idle. Otherwise, he'll actually be doing his walk animation. That will actually be done. Let me think about this. Do I want to do that in the other script? Probably not. I'll probably end up having the other script call this one. And that would probably be the best way to do it, where if he is walking, then it'll get that value from this script and change the animations that way. Oh, sorry about that, you guys. Which means we need to get some values from here. So I'm actually going to create a public bool is moving, is idle. That's all I'm going to do. And so if he is moving, well, actually, first, let's go ahead and work on the update, because right now we have this idle timer, and there's nothing going on here. So if he gets stuck there, he's just going to sit there. So what we need to do is we actually need to come up in here. Inside is dead. I'm actually going to comment these lines out for now. And we're going to say idle timer minus equals time dot delta time. And so this is going to increment it down. We also need to give the idle timer a value. And we also need to specify if is idle. So if it's idle, then this timer is going to be counting down. And is what we want to do is come in here and actually encompass those in swirly brackets, because right here we're going to say if idle timer is less than or equal to 0, then we're going to basically set the destination. We'll say idle timer. Idle timer equals some value. I don't know. Let's say he's just going to sit there for 2 seconds. It does not matter. So what does matter is I'm going to go get me a drink, so I'll be right back. Alright, that is much better. Let's see where we're... Okay, idle timer. So we need to do a check to see if we're idle. And we're going to do that by whenever we hit one of these. So what we'll do is we'll say is idle equals true. And we will go ahead and paste that in here as well. So let's come back up to update. So we're doing the is idle is true. But then we also need to say, I'm actually going to do it below this, we'll say is idle equals false. So he'll sit somewhere for 2 seconds and then he'll go upon his merry little way. We also need to set this to 2 as well. And so if we start chasing the player, what are we going to do? Well, we're already incrementing his speed. We also need to say is idle equals false. And we'll say idle timer, there you are, equals 2. So we're going to automatically reset that. And the reason why we're going to reset that, because let's say he has like 0.5 seconds left. Well, he's going to, once he's done chasing a player, he's still going to have that 0.5 seconds left. So that's why we're resetting that. Next thing we need to do is if he's already going to 0.1 and he hits, or I'm sorry, if he's already wanting to go to 0.2 but he hits 0.1, what's going to happen? Well, that's what these down here are for. So it doesn't matter if he hits these or not. Is what's going to happen is he's going to be set strictly to 0.2. And so he's actually going to ignore these. And so if he's going to 0.2, then we should be good. So let's go ahead and test this out real quick. Make sure it's doing what we want it to do. Of course it won't, because we actually need to create triggers. So I'm actually going to click on both of these. We're going to add a box collider 2D. We're going to make sure they're set as triggers. And we're going to come in here and tag them as turn. So now, if we start playing this, which right now they're both set to false, so he's probably not going to do what we want him to do. Ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Say what? It is assigned. Unless there's something else I'm missing. Let's look at the frog script. Ah! You cheeky little guy, you. Okay, so... which we are missing the target, which would actually be the player. And we have these right here. Going to assume that these are frogs, which means I actually need to I'm going to go and check out the frog prefab real quick and update that. Enemies, check out, okie dokie. We'll come in here, we'll go to modified component, apply to prefab. So that should fix that issue. But now, because both points are set to false, he should just start moving. He is not... Okay, so he is definitely chasing the player, but then he goes right back to being stopped. So, let's see... Wait a minute. Why is this... Huh. Now that is interesting. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to fix this line of code and see what's going on. I'll be right back, you guys. Yeah, there ain't no fixing that line. It's basically the game manager that's causing it. And so because of that, it's saying like, hey, there's no game manager here. And of course there's not, because we're just testing the scene. So that's what's going on here. As long as I don't run, we should be fine. So to kind of help prevent that, I'm actually going to go into the frog script. I'm actually going to change his speed to 1. So he should be moving, but then he'll kind of like move a little slower. So why is he not chasing me? Why is he not patrolling? Well, very simply, is because we haven't set 0.1 or 0.2 to true yet. So if we come up to start, we'll say 0.1 equals true. Okay, so now that we have assigned that, he should start moving now. Should. Not saying he will, I'm just saying he should. If not, then we'll come back in, we'll see what else is going on. So I need to hurry up and kill this piranha plant. Okay. Come a little closer, my pretty. Alright, so he's hitting that, but he's not doing what we want him to do. So let's go ahead and come back in here and see what is going on. So he has a speed, and that should be going back and forth between that. So I'm actually going to uncomment these out, and we actually want to say, instead of move right, we're going to say 0.1. So let's see what this does for us. We'll see if it's the vec move towards or if it's something else. So let that compile. We'll hit play and see what he does. That is not what I wanted to happen. Alright, so he's kind of doing it. It's definitely dealing with this up here. So we're calling the set destination, but I don't think... Yeah, I don't think at all. There's one thing that's going on is this is only being called once. And so it's probably moving them just a little bit, but it's not actually doing what we want it to do. So I'm actually going to hit Control C. We're going to say if is idle. Below that, we'll just paste it. We'll hit save. And I hate calling this every single frame, but we're going to see what this does for us, because he should start moving to his destinations. Okay, so right there, he should be waiting for about 2 seconds. And nothing is happening. So I'm actually going to turn off the Chompy plant for now. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to give this player a lot of speed. So we have speed set to 3. I'm actually going to set to something like, let's give her twice the amount of speed. Get her really moving. Alright, so back to the frog script. Let's see what is going on. So, what is going on? Well, is idle is set to false. So he's going to go there. He's going to become idle. Then idle timer will subtract from that. And once it's less than or equal to 0, then it should set back, and idle should be set to true. Or, I'm sorry, false. So let's go ahead and do a debug.log. We're going to say is idle. So I'm just looking for true and false values, and this will tell me what is going on and why it's happening. I'm sure it's something super simple that I am overlooking. Okay, so that should be enough to see what's going on. So we have false. Idle is constantly equaling false. So, what we'll need to do is start looking over everything. I'm actually going to start down here, because if he's on point 1 and he hits one of these, then he needs to switch to point 2, and is idle should equal true. Which I guess we don't really need to set the destination, because we're going to be doing that up there in the update. I doubt this is the issue. I did not mean to do that. Okay, so he just hit the first one, moved forward a little bit, and now he's constantly moving forward. Okay, so now that is telling me, that's giving me a lot more information. So this is point 1, and it seems like when he's hitting here, it's not setting it to point 2. So he is definitely going from false to true, so that is working now. And so what we need to do is, if we're set to point 1, now we're setting to point 2, which means he needs to go to point 2. So if point 1 which that should be false, and that one should be true. You know, I know exactly what it is. So we have the vector up here, but we don't have the... I'm trying to think how to explain this. We don't actually have the location of it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to do it off of the self-transform. So we're going to say PT1, PT2. And if we look in here, we have this in here where this is basically saying like what it is, and essentially all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy it, slap it up here, and so we're no longer getting a player vec, we're actually getting the PT, no it's not, it's 0.1 vec, and this one will be 0.1 vec. So if we're going towards 0.1, this is where this is going to be, and we're actually just going to copy this. Normally I don't set code like this, I'm just kind of doing it right now just to kind of help it out. I'll end up cleaning this up a little bit later on, more than likely. Alright, so we'll let that compile. We'll go back to the frog. So now inside the frog we have 0.1 and 0.2. We need to drag those in here so it knows where those transforms are. The reason why we need that, because we're actually calling that saying, hey, you need to move towards this transform. So he should hit that, he'll stop, he should flip around, and he's not doing it. Okay, so... Oh, player's not able to take damage. Okay, I don't care about that. So let's see what's going on here. This is the way we had to do it for the player, and the reason why we did it this way for the player is because we were actually seeing the frog was going up and going down. And so we were literally just saying, hey, use this instead of this. And I'm actually going to lower this distance to 5. This way the player can be a little bit further away and we can see what the frog is doing exactly. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 0.1, because 0.2 is right here, 0.1 is right here, so I'm just going to move it right in front of the frog, and I'll put the frog right between the two. So that should work. And I'm actually going to turn off maximize on play, and let's just see what the frog does. So he should hit that. He's still hitting it. Okay, so he's hitting it, but he's not changing this around. And that is the part that is confusing me, because we want him to hit 0.1 and then set his destination to 0.2. And now I am confused why that is not working. So what I'm going to do is I actually need to create another, I don't want to do it up there. We just start undoing. So I'm actually going to do a debug.log down here. And we're going to say 0.1 equals plus 0.1. And then we will say and 0.2 equals plus 0.2. And so inside in here I'm going to say debug.log. We're going to say 0.2 is true. And inside this I'm going to say, you know what, I'm just going to copy this and say 0.1 is true. So what is this doing for me? Well, basically If I see at any point that point 2 is true and he hasn't hit point 2 yet, then I know that, okay, there's something going on in here. Otherwise, if these are doing what I want them to do, then it's basically acting the way I want it to act. But this is the purpose of these debug logs. In fact, we have other debug logs up here that we don't really even need. So I'm actually going to comment this section out, and we'll come back in here. We'll just wait. And we still have the false and the true, and that will tell me if, it's basically going to tell me if he's an idle or not. So point 1 is false, point 2 is true. So he's hitting point 1. Point 1 is true, which is how it starts off. But then when he hits here, this is switching around, and point 2 is true. So if it's point 2 that is true, I did not mean to play that. Which, yeah, that should be correct because he's hit point 1. And so is what I need to do is then I need to come up here. And we're saying if he's not idle, we need to set his destination. Set destination will move towards point 1 if point 1 is true. Otherwise, it'll move towards point 2. So, why is that? I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background. I probably need to take her out, so I'll be right back, you guys. Alright, I am back, and I think I figured out what the problem is. We actually need to make speed a negative number. Very easy to overlook. That's the point of me creating all these debug.logs, is basically I can look at it and be like, okay, this is what's going on. So now when we see him hit here, he should pause, and then he should start going this way. There we go. And now, he just decides that he's going to leave the game because he hates his life. I don't know. So that is working. So now we need to switch this to false. We need to switch this to true. We can go and get rid of these debugged lines. There we go. We'll come up here and we'll get rid of this debug line. Alright, so we are now switching those states back and forth. And we're going to let him actually hit this, and then we're going to run away from him, and then we'll let him go back to his patrol state. So he'll follow us. Come back here. Okay, so he just barely tapped that. And he's not doing it. Why is he not doing it? So... oh, because he's still hitting, and it's just doing a check to see what point 1 is. So it's still switching those back around. This is where it gets kind of confusing. So now we're at the point where he's kind of doing what he was doing before. However, when we hit any of these turn points, that's what's going to flip them around. So now is what we need to do is we actually need to specify like when we're going to, I guess you'd say, switch it. And I just want him to go to idle when he hits these. Otherwise, he'll just go to the other. And so up here is where we actually come in and start changing things around. So we have this to... I'm trying to think how to explain this. When he comes into contact here, this is what's going to determine if he's going to switch around or not. So if he comes here, we're actually going to say point 1 equals false, point 2 equals true. We're going to take both of these and we're going to slap them in here. We're going to change these values around. And now we need to do a check, because right now if he's going to point 1, it's just going to switch this back around immediately. We don't want that. So down here, how are we going to do that? Well, the way we do that is, you see this distance? you can actually get the distance of a vector. And I don't know if we're actually, yeah, float. So it's actually a vector to distance. And this is how we're going to do this. So because I'm lazy, I'm actually just going to copy this line of code and we're going to slap it up here. The only difference is we're going to, or actually I can't slap it up here, I actually need to slap it within here. So the reason why I'm not getting any errors because distance only applies to what is within this block of code. So we can have multiple blocks of code, and as long as it stays within these parentheses, we won't get an error. Same thing with this down here. The only difference is we don't want the player position, we want the point, no, it's pt1 dot position, or this one would actually be 2. And this will be the same thing, so we'll say pt1. And we're going to say if, we need to do a distance, if distance is less than 0.5f, then we'll do all this special stuff in here. And we're going to say the same thing right here. We're going to say if distance is less than 0.5f, we will do the special stuff down here. So essentially all that's happening is I can actually get rid of these. And honestly, I don't even need to do a check anymore if he hit these points or not, or whatever one is true. We're just going to say is idle equals true. Meh. There we go. All right. So now we should see that he's going to do what we want him to do. He still won't flip around, but that is okay. So he's going to hit that. He's going to stop. He's going to chase me. And there we go. So he was chasing me, and then he decided that he's going to go the other way. So now we saw that he kind of went back a little bit. He's going forward a little bit, and he's still stopping. Why is that? Well, the reason for that is because his distance, he needs to go where it's less than 0.5, and that's why he's doing that. So to fix this is what we need to do is we actually we could do a distance check to see if he's within range, but more specifically because we know he is going where he needs to, I'm just going to change this to 1.5, and this one will be changed to 1.5. And so now is what should happen is pretty soon we'll actually be able to get rid of the box colliders completely, where once he gets within a certain range, he'll just stop and say, yes, he is idle. And so now that's working the way it should. And I'm actually going to set these back to 0.5f. I'm going to say is idle equals true. And we'll come back down here and we'll say is idle equals true. So we're calling is idle true up here. And the only thing we're doing is, where are you at? Here we go. The only thing we're doing is saying is idle is true down here, but we no longer even need this because we're no longer needing to do a trigger check. It's all being controlled through script. And that's essentially what I was talking about the other day about just getting rid of it completely. So I've essentially showed you step by step how to go using the triggers and then breaking away from the triggers slowly. And so now we need to come up here. We have is idle on both of these. However, if he is chasing the player, we don't want him to do anything. So we're going to say if is chasing. We will encompass this in swirly brackets and save it. So now, if he is saving, if he is chasing, he'll continue chasing us until that's false. Once that's false, then he's going to go back to his patrol state. So let's go ahead and test that right now. I'm still keeping those box colliders so you can see where his patrol states are. So he's going to move forward. He's going to stop. He's going to go to idle. I'm going to let him chase me for just a minute. And there we go. And so you'll see he'll get to about here. He'll stop. And then he'll start going back the other direction. And so this is how we can create a patrol area that he is currently monitoring. Now, one of the questions you might be wondering, why is he going so far back on this one, but barely going back on this one? Well, quite simply, if we look at the patrol area is right here. The size of this unit is 1 square. The frog, however, has an offset. There's actually a bunch of empty space in the frog. So if I were to come here, and let's go ahead and add a Boss Collider 2D, you can see all the space inside this frog, and that's why he goes so far back and so far forward. So that's how you create a patrol. Sorry about the little error where it's like he kept wanting to go one direction because I was being a dumbass and forgot to put a minus sign in front of the word speed. But hey, there you guys go. All controlled through script, and since that is all controlled through script and this is working, now we can click on point 1 and point 2. We can actually just remove this component. This doesn't even need a tag. So that is how you can create a very simple patrol area where he goes from point 1 to point 2. So thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.